Hey everybody, it's Rob the Metal Guy, and I am here with my top 10 albums of 2023, plus my Rob the Metal Guy awards. Yes, I have not done a top 10 albums of the year list in a long time for my YouTube channel. For the blog, the rockandmetaltemple.blogspot.com, I've actually been doing it pretty regular. If you check it out, I have my top 10 albums plus my famous, well, to me they're famous, the Rob the Metal Guy awards, which I've been doing for a while. Some of the awards is given to hardworking labels, bands. I recognize people for their contributions to the rock and metal world. And then some of the awards are for people who just, well, let's say they were a big douche. And I actually have a special presenter for the Biggest Douche of the Year award, which we will get to. So more on that later. But anyway, let us begin with my top 10 albums of the year. Actually, I'm going to have some tea here. Got my cat mug. That actually kind of looks like my cat Sabrina. It's a jasmine tea. I get it from the Japanese market, the Mitsuyama market in San Jose. You can also order it, I think, online, the brand. It's really good, though. It's a jasmine tea. And also give a shout out to Kuno Kaniya. It's a manga store in San Jose. Great place. The workers are friendly. I can just say in 2023, I had some of my most enjoyable visits to the Japanese market. Of course, driving to San Jose is not very enjoyable. There's a lot of freaking traffic, a lot of weirdos. You see some interesting characters along Stevens Creek Boulevard. But it's California for you. As long as they're not pooping in the street like San Francisco, I guess that's all you can ask for. But anyway, let's get to the top 10 albums. I got a list here because, well, I'm trying to make sure I pronounce everything correctly and I don't forget anything. So I made some notes. Again, this is not, a professional award ceremony. The budget this year, let's just say, was pretty small. So we're working with what we have. Couldn't hire a comedian, but then again, I was afraid if I hired a comedian, they'd probably get me canceled, probably offend somebody, because nowadays everybody's offended so easily. It's kind of sad, the world we live in, but oh well, gotta do what we can. It's okay for girls on OnlyFans to sell photos of their crap, but actually, I was going to make a joke about that. Actually, I was saying that people were saying, I can't believe that there are these girls that will take photos of their crap and guys will buy it. And I said, really? You're shocked that people would pay for crap? Hell, Taylor Swift, her fans do it all the time. She puts out crap left and right and they eat it up. Well, I'm not legit. They eat the crap. But anyway, I'm going to move on. We're losing this video. This is turning into a Greg Gutfeld perverted video or something. Anyway, like I said, I couldn't hire the comedian, so you got me. The best you're going to get. All right, anyway, moving on. The top 10 albums of 2023. Starting out, I have Shadows, a band that put out their debut release, Out for Blood, on Sentient Ruin. If you like classic metal, similar to that of Merciful Fate, Shadows, Out for Blood very much reminded me of that sound, the late 70s, early 80s period of heavy metal, those elements. Kind of had some early Judas Priest to it as well. Really catchy riffs. The themes on the album very much reminded me of like a Merciful Fate, horror themes, the occult, evil, right? That I just liked how it had that classic sound, but it didn't sound gimmicky, right? It didn't sound like cheap. It was a really well-produced album. And it was also an album that kind of stood out on Sentient Ruin because most of the releases that you hear from Sentient Ruin, and a lot of them are going to be in my top 10 list. And just to give you an FYI, Sentient Ruin dominated this year when it came to my top 10 albums. Actually, if I was to do a top 20, Sentient Ruin probably would have a majority of the albums that came out just on those lists because the label finds these artists, works with these artists, and really does an amazing job promoting. I mean, I am very much impressed by the promotion of what Sentient Ruin did. And Shadows actually put out their demo on Sentient Ruin, so I had heard about them before this full length came out, and I like what the band did with the full length. I thought they went in a really good direction. So very much enjoyed it, and that's why it's starting off at number 10. Number 9, Uranium with Pure Nuclear Death. Uranium is an artist that's been on Sentient Ruin for a few years now. And I've listened to the releases from Uranium, and they're not bad, right? It's definitely for more of a noise, extreme, blackened, death metal, doom, just completely decimating sound, right? For a person that enjoys that. And I never to say I would write them off, but I didn't really pay attention until this one. I listened to it the first listen, and I was just taken back by the sheer brutality, the vividness from the compositions. This album, to me, is an underrated gem that came out in 2023. And if you haven't checked out Uranium, do so. Even if, like I said, you're not fully into their sound, you have to appreciate the extreme artistic expression that this band was able to accomplish. Really liked it. So Pure Nuclear Death, number 9. Number 8, I'm going to go with Marduk, Memento Mori. Marduk, iconic black metal band. Panzer Division, one of my all-time favorite albums. A lot of their albums I'm a huge fan of, right? This great black metal band, talented, the adrenaline-pumping black metal riffs that they've been able to come up with over the years, and also the raw, harsh tone that you hear. And a lot of bands that I would say Marduk's fellow peers have been around for a while that achieved that black metal high-regarded status have put out releases in the last few years that, in my opinion, sound very slick, overproduced, and just very forgettable after one listen. Memento Mori, I thought, was an album that had a very raw, harsh black metal sound, and Marduk did not fall victim to what I've heard a lot of these bands kind of do now, right? Like I said, I've seen it, heard it, and I've kind of been like, oh, so this band's putting out a new album? Well, I don't know. I'll take a listen, and then I'll just usually after one listen be like, I'm not going to listen to this again. No, I really kept going back to Marduk's new release here and thought they still got it. And the vocals, the production, everything about it, this album really stood out. And it, to me, continues to show how Marduk is one of the most talented black metal bands around. Their releases, even if you're not a huge fan of their releases, I do believe they have a consistency, especially when you look at their albums from the 90s. And even as of recent, they've continued to thrive. They've continued, people reference their even most recent releases, I feel, right? The last 5 years, Marduk has had a presence within the black metal community that is still going. And I hope they come back to America. I know they had some issues with Antifa at one point. I would love to see them do like a full extensive U.S. tour again. I hope they don't get canceled. That would just be BS, and screw those freaking woke Antifa protesters that shut them down. Actually, they had a show that was planned in Oakland. I was even thinking about maybe going to that show back in 2017, I believe. And I feel so bad that they had that happen. Or it might have been 2018. I can't remember exactly, but it was around that time. And, Graveland had it happen to them in Canada, right? That festival. I wrote the article for the blog, actually, for both Graveland and Marduk. And it's sad because when you really just listen to this band and putting aside the BS claims that Marduk's had to deal with, they are a tremendous, influential act. And they continue to show it. It's pretty much they keep going and they tell people to screw off. We still got it, and we got the fan base that acknowledges. So really happy to see that album this year and hear what they were able to do. And I hope they keep going. Really proud, really enjoyed it. Number 7, I actually have the vinyl of, so I'll show. This is Decoherence at number 7 with Order. This album was also on Sentient Ruin. And Decoherence is an act that I've been following for a while now. Their albums tend to show up on my top 10 now when I come to think of it. It's their third full-length release. The last couple, sure enough, were in my top 10. But Order continues the industrial black and death metal assault, the kind of lyrics dealing with technology, humanity. I just really like their sound, the science fiction themes and the atmospheres, what they're going through in terms of their sonic themes, just stands out. It's surrealistic, it grips you, and this new album I thought was very much a continuation, but also at times they experimented with, I feel, a little more industrial elements, which I kind of liked. I felt that you heard a bit of a different, more industrial sound at times, where the previous releases definitely had more the raw black metal with some industrial elements. I just like the balance. I love the compositions on this album. They're very dynamic, very unorthodox. Decoherence always goes for that unorthodox kind of style of, composing their riffs and the arrangements and the tempo. But really would recommend Decoherence Order. I've talked about it before in a previous video. It's an album that I knew right away it's going to be in the top 10 when I first heard it, because I was so impressed by what this band did. Number 6, Old Tower, Draconic Synthesis. Old Tower, one of my favorite dungeon synth acts around. And sure enough, when I saw that Old Tower was putting out a new release, I could not wait. Huge fan of the last full-length Old Tower release, The King of Old Witches. That album, it has the dungeon synth elements, but you also hear some ambient elements thrown there at times, but it was the storytelling. You could follow along listening to that, and you can mentally picture where this album was going, right? The story that the Spectre, who is the mastermind behind Old Tower, what the Spectre was trying to accomplish. And I really thought, wow, this was cinematic. It hooked me the whole way through. I hope they continue that style. As much as I love the early Old Tower releases, I have them on CD. I have a ton of Old Tower releases. And the early stuff, very similar to that of Mortis, the early Mortis albums, right? The old school dungeon synth sound, the atmospheres, the tone, the production. But what the Spectre is doing now, and especially when I listen to Draconic Synthesis, I just feel there's more ambient sounds that are kind of, like I said, building a story, really kind of working on this narrative, and there's no lyrics. It's just the sounds that you hear, and it's the atmosphere, it's the tone, it's just everything about this, the new release that I was just taken back. And I'm going to say this. Unfortunately, I pre-ordered the album and it's not going to come out until early 2024. And I feel, because with The King of Old Witches, when I got that album on vinyl and I started listening to it, my appreciation actually grew. So I wonder, will that happen as well? Because once I get the album on vinyl, I'm going to be spinning that thing the whole way through and really listening to that and just taking it in. And I wonder if my appreciation and my enjoyment will increase. I mean, this album might have even been able to jump up. But unfortunately, delays, I still find it sad that you pre-order something and it's going to not come out. But I can understand labels are doing that a lot now, and I'm not going to fault them. It is what it is in that regard. So, hey, unfortunately, you got to wait. But I still listen to it digitally, right? When I pre-ordered, I got to listen to the full-length album. And Old Tower put it out there, as well as the label Hospitable Productions, and you could hear it. And so I listened to it and I said, okay, it's great. Just can't wait till I get the vinyl, right? I'm really excited for that. So looking forward to that. Number 5 is Cha'ahom, Knots of Abhorrence. And actually, here you go. I actually have Cha'ahom, German blackened death metal band here. Their lyrics and the theme of their music, very much entrenched in Mayan lore. Actually, if you see the back, it has kind of like the ancient Mayan artwork and very ritualistic blackened death metal. Great riffs. Love the ambience of this album and the sounds of these flutes that give it that tribal, ritualistic feel, as though you're in the jungle, right? The ancient jungles, right? And the Mayan civilization and the evil powers, evil forces, right? That are around. Just a blistering, brutal album. And Cha'ahom, they had put out a release on Sentient Ruin before this full-length album, Knots of the Abhorrence, and I couldn't at first believe. I was like, whoa, this band is very unique. It's like this progressive blackened death metal, very creative. And when I first heard that demo, and sure enough, that's what they brought on this new album. It's an awesome release. If you haven't heard it, you have to. It is, to me, one of the best albums. And just going to throw this out here, the top 5 albums now that we're getting into that. So 5 to 1, all these albums could have easily been number 1. The competition for number 1 this year, in my personal opinion, I heard some great releases. I mean, but the top 5 was so hard. Like, Cha-Home, this album is a real solid debut album. Just hats off to them. And I really do think Sentient Ruin has got a good thing going with this group. I look forward to more releases. Hopefully that relationship continues, because this debut album, if this is what this band is able to deliver, just think of what we can hear next, right? The brutality, the creativity in terms of the riffs. If you love black and brutal death metal, but that also kind of has a progressive feel to it, check it out. Number 4. Oh, God, this album could have been number 1 almost. Again, like I said, the top 5, it's so hard because I love this album. Ash Prison, Future Torn, industrial metal, some touches of black metal, but this album reminded me so much of that late 80s, early 90s, like the 90s industrial, right? That sinister, just profound feel. Ministry, Land of Rape and Honey, I hear a little of that. Hear some Skinny Puppy. You also maybe hear a little bit of Kim Lab, a lot of, the 90s industrial acts, but this is just a vicious release. And some of the songs on this album, I mean, I listened to it. I have the Bandcamp app. So when I bought this, I got the, digital, and I'll, walk around my neighborhood listening to this. And it's like gets your adrenaline pumping, the guitar playing, and the singer for this band, he sings an abstractor. So he's done great work before I was familiar. And also the guy who plays guitar, like this group has like 3 really talented members. Excuse me, and I'm familiar with the guitarist, I believe, because he played, and he's the mastermind behind it's an industrial synthwave act called Sixth Circle. Oh my God, that group, had a really amazing album that came out on Sentient Ruin. And so to hear them come together and put this release, the creativity, the adrenaline pumping rhythms, the electronic sounds with those guitar elements that reminded me of, like I said, classic 80s, 90s industrial bands that you would hear on like Wax Trax records. That's why I really thought this album was a killer release. And like I'm telling you, the top 5, so hard to choose. Unlike Hollywood, because there was no good movies pretty much this year. Hollywood sucked. I can tell you, it was embarrassing. Also, just the strike. That's what, again, you actors want to go on strike. I'm going to do a little rant here. You want to go on strike, but the quality of the films sucked. The writing sucks. Everything now is just abysmal. I watched so many old movies this year, movies from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, 90s, classic films. And I can tell you, hands down, modern day acting, writing, directing, it's just gone to shit. I'm sorry, it's just gone to shit. But music, no. And my list is proof. These bands all are talented and delivered this year. So, and speaking of delivering, here is Night Demon at number 3 with their 3rd full-length album to date, Outsider. This album showed Night Demon go into a concept-driven release compared to their previous 2 albums. And gosh, I should just do a video just reviewing this album, but I reviewed it for the blog, and I can say I'm very familiar with Night Demon. My first introduction was their EP demo that's self-titled Night Demon, released on Shadow Kingdom Records, and then I interviewed Jarvis Leatherby, the singer and bassist. and we had a kind of friendship ever since then. I've been to many shows of Night Demon when they come to the Bay Area. They haven't been in the Bay Area in a while. Last time they were at Eli's in Oakland, something came up, and to be honest, Eli's in Oakland is in a place that, well, let's just say it's not the greatest place. I risked it for Abstractor. That's how much I care about Abstractor, but I risked it for Abstractor. I would have risked it for Night Demon, but something came up anyway. But I hope they come back. They actually are. They're going to be playing with, I believe, Blind Guardian. So I might make my way out to that show. I believe that's in San Francisco. But getting to the album Outsider, when I look at Night Demon's history, huge fan of their debut album, Curse the Damned. Darkness Remains, the second album. That's a great album as well. This album, to me, Night Demon, their sound is very much entrenched in the old school New Wave British heavy metal, right? That's how I would best describe them. New Wave British heavy metal, but you also hear some other elements. Because the members in the band, they have different influences. Jarvis is a very, very brilliant musician. Songwriter, leader of that band. What he has done, he is the driving force behind Night Demon. But that's not to take away the contributions of the members that have played on the albums besides Jarvis, right? I'm not going to, Brent Windward, the previous guitarist who played on Curse of the Damned, talented guitarist. His impact on that album, definitely. You also have to look at Armand, the current guitarist. His contributions stand out. And the drummer, Dusty, he unfortunately I don't believe is with the band anymore. There's been some lineup changes. But I will say this, Jarvis's drive and passion fuels Night Demon. And Outsider, as a concept album, it stood out because I could hear Jarvis really coming up with some profound songs and the story he came up with. The lyrics on this album definitely are the high point and what makes it stand out. Yes, Night Demon doesn't go for another just, okay, we're going to have New Wave British heavy metal song after song that hits you, right, and gets you. They did little different touches, right? The production, the songwriting. And I like that. At first, I will say, the first listen to some of the songs in Outsider, if you don't listen to the album in entirety, you do kind of go, oh, this is an interesting take. What is Night Demon doing here? But when you actually listen from start to finish to this album, everything works. Very well produced, very creative release. Again, it could have very well been number one. So I'm very glad to see Night Demon continue. And I also like that they did something different, right? It's their first full-blown concept album from start to finish. And I thought they delivered a really tremendous release. So number 3, Night Demon. And again, Jarvis, knowing him and his personality, he's going to keep it going. This is a guy that lives, breathes heavy metal. And he's also, to me, one of the most down-to-earth, respectful musicians around. So I'm very happy that this album came out. I got to hear new Night Demon music this year and was not disappointed in what they put out. Number 2. Oh, God. 1 and 2. Oh, I spent a week trying to figure out, okay, who's number 1, who's number 2, because, geez. I feel so. This could have been number 1. Unfortunately, I had to pick the other one, but both albums could be number 1, man. Ceremonial Bloodbath, Genesis of Malignant Entropy. One of my favorite sentient ruin bands, hands down. Probably one of the best in recent years extreme metal bands, black and death metal, bestial, unforgiving. Ceremonial Bloodbath for their sophomore album did not disappoint. Man, the riffs on this album are so inhumanely raw. Just really grabbed me. And I knew, okay, Tides of Blood is a darker sounding album, in my opinion. There's just more of like this savage demonic energy. This album is more like an apocalyptic annihilation to the ears, right? It has a different feel than the first album in a sense. And I don't know. I like both, of course. The Ceremonial Bloodbath's debut, The Tides of Blood, tremendous album. One of my favorites. Actually, it was like the #1 album for, I think, that year. That was my favorite release. I listened to it so many times at home. I work from home, so I got to listen to it a lot. Trust me, I loved it. But this album, oh, dude, I can tell you, the Boneless One, I love that. And then Loathing Swarm, it's on and Mutilation of Sacrifice, it's on a EP, a 7-inch that I have. I love those songs as well. Great riffs, very savage, bestial sounding, very much in the vein of like Archgoat, Beharit. But what they are doing is tremendous. And Sentient Ruin, kudos to them for promoting this band and getting it out there. And I really like to see Ceremonial Bloodbath come and do, like, again, a small tour maybe down here. Would love to see like them with Abstractor. That'd be such a cool show. But this album, they came out is awesome. Brilliant freaking death metal, black metal, just pure brutality. And that's what Sentient Ruin delivered this year. Bands that don't disappoint from start to finish. The production, the creativity, the vision. Sinister, abhorrent to the max, right? There's no BSing with these artists. So Ceremonial Bloodbath at #2. Time for #1, what everybody's been waiting for. Lathe of Heaven, Bound by Naked Skies. Man, this album, I wasn't expecting it. And I'm actually wearing the shirt too under my jacket. So, I'm trying to look professional for this awards thing, right? Go figure. I'm wearing my Lathe of Heaven shirt under. But, no, to talk about this album, I came across it through this YouTube channel that I follow called No Deal. And No Deal, great YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, the individual has a lot of punk releases, underground, raw, crust punk, post-punk, just tons of really good releases from the underground. And he had this album called Bound by Naked Skies, Lathe of Heaven, right? He had this release he had put on his channel. And he said, this album's coming out soon. I've been able to put this on, check it out. And I read the description. I said, okay, the first song, At Moment's Edge, it hit me. Because I heard these elements of classic new wave. The tone of the guitars, the production, everything just really reminded me of the new wave post-punk music that I enjoy, but I had not heard it done in this way. The sound was so refreshing. It grabbed you, it just grabs you. It grabbed me right away. And I just, okay, I got to keep listening. And then I heard the next song, Ekpriosis, and I thought, this sounds like Killing Joke. Whoa, man, this is crazy. Like, it had that tone, that feel, the guitars, the bass, the drums, everything. I was really impressed. And the singer, one of the best vocal performances of this year. I didn't have the best vocal performance of the year as an award in the Rob Melguy Awards, but if I did, this guy would get it. Tremendous singer. Has such powerful raw emotion when he's delivering the lyrics. It complements the music. It complements the tone of the compositions. And my favorite song of this, Moon Driven Sea, it takes you away. Like, I can listen to that album and my mind is put at ease. There's something about it. It just has this effect. And I pretty much listen to this album. If I'm taking a walk in my neighborhood, I'm listening to this album. If I'm, working, I'm listening to this album. I really am listening to this album a lot because from a standpoint of the songwriting and just how this band executed their sound, it's impeccable. There's no complaints. And this album, like I said, the reason why this album came in at #1, I wasn't expecting this because this was my first time ever hearing about this group. Where a lot of these bands on this list, I'm familiar with, right? I have a predisposition to, I know about these artists. Ash Prison, didn't know Ash Prison was a new group. In a way, it's a group of people that I'm familiar with that have other bands, so I know what these guys can accomplish. But Lathe of Heaven, I never heard of this band. And I was really taken back by that. And that's why at number 1, Lathe of Heaven, Bound by Naked Skies, is my album of the year. All right, people. Thank you very much. I'm going to have another sip of tea here. All right, now we're going to get into the awards. So, Label of the Year. Starting the Rob the Metal Guy Awards, everybody. Hey, thank you for coming. Actually, I'm not in a studio. There's no one here. My nephew's probably playing video games in the room over, and he's wondering, what the hell is my uncle doing? Probably babbling about music again. That's what he knows me for. But anyway, Label of the Year, Sentient Ruin Records. Congratulations, Sentient Ruin. Once again, year after year, you keep winning that award, because when I look at my lists, when I look at the albums that I review that I've enjoyed, Sentient Ruin is associated with them. And I'm going to say this. The individual that runs Sentient Ruin works extremely hard. And he doesn't want people to know his name. And I respect that. He wants people to focus on the bands. He doesn't want the credit in a way. This individual, he's not into, hey, look at me, I run a label. No. He promotes the artist. And I can tell by the way he writes the promos, right? Check, the description of the bands, the description of the album. I tell you, the vinyl, when you get a vinyl from Sentient Ruin, there's just something about it. There's a passion, there's a connection, and it's all about the music. Year after year, I do not believe Sentient Ruin disappoints. And the extreme metal community needs to take a look at that, because that's what we need. Passion, commitment. And it's not just about the individual. It's about the community, the fans, the bands, everyone. That's how we're going to keep this thing going, man. Because damn well we're not winning Grammys, but we have people year after year that will buy the albums, that will listen to the music and have a bond with it. And so, Sentient Ruin, thank you for keeping that going. Label of the Year. Let's go with my 2023 live performance of the year. I'm going with My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult in San Jose. That was an amazing concert. I had so much fun. But My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult, they sounded great. The set list was great. I can tell you, that set list flowed and everything about it. They were playing songs that I thought really got the crowd going, right? The connection, for me especially, hearing certain songs in the order they did it, you just felt like, this is great. I keep hearing what I enjoy. And even in songs that you don't really hear a lot from them, right? Maybe a song or two that they're not as popular amongst the fan base, but everyone was having a great time. And they sounded so good. And for the encore, Cooler Than Jesus, one of the best encores I've ever heard. Just the way that they sang it, groovy man, connecting with the crowd like he did, just great presence. He's an awesome front man. If you have a chance to see My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult, because they are going to be touring a little bit in early 2024, I believe, go see them. If they come to your city, you got to see this band once in your life at least, man. You got to. They're just so good. Really amazing industrial act. Highly influential, too, right? I talk about bands that have had an influence. My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult, when it comes to industrial music, I'm sorry, so many bands have taken from them. It's crazy. Let's go to EP of the year. From Arizona, Eternal, Faceless Evil. If you want to take a little closer look there, you better go listen to this album. You better make sure you write down this band, Eternal. Old school death metal style band. Reminds me of Obituary, Massacre, Death. I'd say Scream Bloody Gore especially. You hear a lot of that. Just really face-ripping old school death metal. I love it. just great brutality. They're young, they're hungry, they got a raw, tough attitude. I'm looking forward. They're making new music, I hear, 2024. They could be in my top albums of 2024 because this EP I loved, and I quickly bought it once I heard it. I said, this band, I'm putting my money on them. That's why I said I think I'm going to give them EP of the year. Couldn't put it in my top albums because it's not a full-length album, but when it comes to an EP, the best EP I heard this year. One of, actually. I've heard a couple good ones, but this one stood out the most to me. So check them out. Eternal from Arizona, Faceless Evil. What's up next, everybody? Oh, album cover of the year. Well, going with Sentient Ruins album here. This is Ceremonial Bloodbath. But from Sentient Ruin, right? That's another thing. The album covers from bands that are on Sentient Ruin, they're brutal. They're great. Brilliant. Very much surrealistic, raw, taps into the music, right? And this album cover, you can see it with the freaking mushroom cloud, the like gas mask, like monster demon creatures ripping apart the corpses of angels. It's brutal. I love it. And it fits the music. It fits what this album musically is going for, right? The theme. So I thought that's album cover of the year, hands down. Also, I'm going to give a shout out to the artist for Night Demon. I have this actually, the t-shirt. I like it. It's, to me, it has that kind of classic science fiction theme, like an 80s science fiction movie, a story influence, in the realm of like horror and science fiction, which Jarvis was going for. So I give a shout out to the artist that did that. But the winner of album cover of the year will be from Sentient Ruin, Ceremonial Bloodbath, Malignant, the Genesis of Malignant Entropy. What do we got? Up and coming artists. Here's a young group that I really liked, Sin Offering, and their EP, The Charnel House, or excuse me, just Charnel House. If you haven't checked it out, do so. Sin Offering. I'm a little disappointed though in Sin Offering. I would have liked to have had a full length or a physical release of this, album. I just have the digital on the Bandcamp. But if you put out a small, 7-inch vinyl or something, or a demo cassette, hell, I'd buy it. It was really good, and I believe this group, they're post-punk, goth rock, reminded me a lot of Christian Death, which is why I liked it so much. I really hope that they continue. Here's a band I'm putting money on. One day they're going to be something. Okay. All right, manga of the year. Okay, we're going to do that one. We got Mao. Giving it to Rumiko Takahashi. Got to give a shout out to her. She's one of my favorite all-time manga artists. And her series Mao this year, I've been enjoying so much. The story is getting really good. It's grabbing me, the characters. If you haven't checked out the first Mao, do so if you're into manga or just good storytelling, There's just some great, the characters. And I really like it. And I believe that the story's getting good. And I like where it's headed. And her artwork is amazing. She has, again, Inuyasha. She's amazing. Urusei Yatsura, Mermaid Saga. The list goes on and on. But Mao is her most recent work. And this year, I really do believe the way that she is telling the story, 2023, it was one of the best manga series that I've read in a while. To me, in recent years, it's really stood out. All right, we're going to actually have now, for the biggest douche of the year award, we're going to have a special person, actually, a celebrity of sorts. My nephew Mason will be giving the award. He'll actually be announcing it. He calls it biggest douche of the universe, but it's the biggest douche of 2023. So go to Mason. All right, Mason. Here you are presenting what award today?
The award for the biggest douche in the universe. And this award will go to Tony Khan.
What?
Get out of here.
Oh, hey, no, don't shoot me. All right, as you see that he's trying to shoot me with a Nerf gun. He's playing his video game, so whenever he plays his video games, he typically, he doesn't like to be bothered. He's at that age. But anyway, yes, Tony Khan, the owner of All Elite Wrestling, AEW. He won the award because the guy's just a douche. He can't take criticism. He lost CM Punk, and all these people are going to say, oh, but CM Punk did this and this and this. Oh, no, Tony Khan runs Romper Room. The place is unorganized, and the guy's he's an immature man-child. And this is another, and I'm going to say this because this happens in the music industry. There are people who have really no experience in positions of power. And what happens is they get to make decisions. And you see right away, that's not a good decision, or you need to think about that, or oh my God, seriously, buddy? And it's because they have money, right? Tony Khan is the son of a billionaire. His dad, that's pretty much how AEW started. This guy has a lot of money available, right? Dad pretty much lets him, spend money like a drunken sailor. And you see it in the music industry. There are bands, labels, that there's connection because they have a lot of money. And I'll actually tell a story. Excuse me, why Tony Khan? I've seen this. Where there was a band. They had top-of-the-line guitars. They had top-of-the-line amps, right? The Eddie Van Halen custom amps. They had a light show, right? Their drummer, he had the freaking nicest drum kit you could ever see. That singer had a wireless mic. But they sucked. And the singer started to bitch because people were leaving and didn't want to watch him perform because musically, they sounded horrible. And he's blaming the fans. So you guys don't support the scene and you're not metal and you're not, bang your heads if you were real metal. And why is everybody, why is no one here for our show here? You guys suck. Yeah. Don't blame it on the fact that musically you're boring. You guys have nothing to offer and you were putting people to sleep. Don't take credit for your faults. Just because you got the nicest amps, the nicest guitars, Eddie Van Halen custom amps and guitars, you got a light show, you got a wireless mic, here it is, you guys, got a fancy, they had like a fancy van too they pulled up in, and you just kind of look at them and like, okay, you better deliver, because if not, people are just going to say, and walk away. And that's what happened. Or my friend and I were just standing there watching this, shaking our heads, and he was throwing a tantrum. Tony Khan does the same thing. Stuff starts happening with AEW, he goes on Twitter and starts throwing a tantrum saying that, to be AEW, you're under constant attack. Welcome to the world of critics, buddy. Jesus Christ. This is what happens with these kids that get participation trophies. Sometimes you'll lose. Tony Khan, you did not lose. You won an award this year. So if you don't get Booker of the Year, which I know you covet so well, Dave Meltzer, talk about phony journalist right there, a guy that pretty much made his career just giving an opinion, claims to be a journalist, but his stuff is a bunch of BS usually, and he's a guy is just a weirdo. I always worry I'm going to run into him in San Jose because he's in that area, but oh God, if he does, better not be at that Japanese market. Oh, I don't want to have to, those poor Japanese people, they don't have to, I hope they don't have to put up with Dave Meltzer. Oh God, he's such a douche. Anyway, the poor people that work at the market, I hope they don't have to see him. Nah, he probably goes to Whole Foods or something. He seems like that type of weirdo. But anyway, Tony Khan, he loves this award for Booker of the Year, right? Because Dave Meltzer gave it to him already. Guess what? If you don't win it, you at least won something from me. Really, again, it doesn't matter because these awards, they're opinions. If you're mad that you don't win an award, or you're mad that someone criticized you, such is life. That's what it is. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this long award ceremony. Guys, this was more like on cinema. But unlike Tim Heidecker, I didn't get drunk and start assaulting my assistants. Oh boy, on cinema. Greg Turkington. That guy's great. He's a national treasure. We got to protect him at all costs. But all right, everybody. May you have a wonderful Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever, Kwanzaa. I don't even know if anyone celebrates that. And may you have a happy new year. Looking forward to 2024. I know that the music will not disappoint because the bands, the extreme metal, punk, rock community continues to thrive and deliver. Whereas the state of Hollywood, I don't think we're going to see anything, especially from Disney. They're going in the toilet. Oh, God, I look forward to seeing 2024, more people shitting on them. But anyway, have a good one. Rob the Mail Guy signing off. Later.